Ilara moved through the misty village streets like a shadow. Her feet barely made a sound against the cobblestones, and yet the villagers noticed her. Mothers pulled their children close, whispering warnings that she could hear but pretended not to. The market animals, horses, goats, even stray dogs, veered away from her path as if some invisible force warned them. No one dared touch her. No one dared look her fully in the eye. Rumors of curses and misfortune clung to her like a second skin. And yet, beneath the quiet, bowed shoulders and pale, timid gaze, a spark glimmered, one the villagers could never see. Ilara's fingers brushed against the rough wood of a market stall as she passed, almost as if testing her own existence. A child peeked from behind a barrel, daring a glimpse, then yelped when she turned her head. Her gaze was soft but unnervingly direct, and the child fled as though chased by a phantom. The village elders muttered in corners, faces tight with unease. "She walks with the night in her eyes. Mark my words, she'll bring trouble." Ilara had long learned to wear their fear as armor, hiding her heart behind polite nods and lowered eyes. Yet tonight, as a thin crescent moon slipped behind the clouds, something stirred within her. A warmth, a pulse, a whisper she didn't recognize, but somehow knew was hers. She stopped at the edge of the old stone bridge that spanned the silvered river. The water shimmered unnaturally, reflecting not just the moon but a faint, flickering glow that seemed to dance around her hands. A sudden rustle came from the forest nearby. Ilara's heart quickened, but not with fear. It was curiosity, sharp and insistent, like the pull of a hidden thread she had always felt but never followed. She froze, senses straining. From the shadows a figure shifted. Silent, watching, waiting, and then it vanished. Ilara swallowed hard, gripping the railing of the bridge. For the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't entirely alone. The full moon rose high above the village, spilling silver across the rooftops and winding streets. Ilara stepped carefully along the familiar paths, her cloak pulled tight around her shoulders. The villagers were mostly indoors now, shuttered windows and flickering candlelight keeping them safely away from her. Or at least, that's what they believed. Yet the whispers followed her. There she goes, the cursed one. Watch out, the night bends for her. Even the wind seemed to murmur, rustling the trees in uneasy warning. Ilara's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the strange thrill that came when the world itself seemed to bend around her presence. As she reached the edge of the forest, the shadows deepened, thick and almost tangible. She paused, instinctively sensing eyes upon her. Her heart beat faster, a mixture of anticipation and unease. And then she saw it, a figure half, hidden among the trees, tall and silent, watching her with an intensity that made the hairs on her neck rise. Ilara's breath caught. It wasn't human, not entirely. The aura around the shadow shimmered faintly under the moonlight, like silver threads pulled taut in the air. She wanted to flee, but something rooted her to the spot, a curious pull she could neither name nor resist. The forest whispered secrets she couldn't understand. Leaves quivered, shadows twisted, and the air seemed charged with something ancient and alive. Ilara realized she wasn't just being observed, she was being chosen. A soft rustle behind her made her whirl around, but the path was empty. Only the silver glow of the moon illuminated her pale face, her wide eyes, and the faint tremor of anticipation in her hands. She felt a shiver not of fear, but of awakening, as though something hidden inside her was stirring, trying to speak. Then, from the darkness beyond the trees, a low, resonant sound emerged. Not a growl, not quite a whisper, something in between. It called to her, tugging at the part of her she had kept hidden even from herself. And just like that, the figure vanished, leaving only the rustling leaves and a lingering sense that her life had just shifted forever. Ilara swallowed hard, heart hammering. For the first time, she realized her curse might not be what everyone thought, and that the world held secrets waiting for her, dangerous and extraordinary in equal measure. Dawn broke over the village with a soft golden light that failed to warm the chill surrounding Ilara. The morning market buzzed with life, but today the whispers felt sharper, heavier. She moved among the stalls with careful steps, keeping her head down, hands folded over her cloak. Every glance felt like a needle against her skin, and then came Mara, the girl she had once called a friend, now a rival, stepped into the sunlight with a calculated smile. "Ah, Ilara," she called loudly, voice sweet enough to mock. "Come show everyone how the cursed girl dances in the light of day." A hush fell over the crowd. Children peeked from behind carts, mothers clutched their baskets tighter, and the elders exchanged wary, knowing glances. Ilara's stomach knotted, but she refused to rise to the bait. She turned, intending to walk away, to vanish into the shadows as she always did. But Mara wasn't done. Afraid, she taunted, stepping closer, eyes glinting with malice. "Or do you simply terrify the world with your curse?" Laughter rippled through the villagers, cruel and sharp. Ilara felt it like stones thrown at her chest, heavy and relentless. The world seemed to tilt, and for a moment, the whispers of the night, the pull she had felt under the moon, felt like a distant memory, almost unreachable. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stand taller. "I am no one's amusement," she said softly, yet the words sounded fragile, even to her own ears. Mara's smirk widened, sensing victory. "We all see you, Ilara, the girl who walks with shadows, who frightens even the beasts. Stay away, or your curse will find its truth." And then a sudden commotion. Dogs barking, carts overturned, a sharp shout from an elder trying to restore order. The villagers' attention wavered, and Ilara's eyes flicked to the edge of the square. For a fleeting second, she thought she saw a figure watching from the forest beyond the village, half hidden in shadow, as if drawn by her suffering. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be the same presence from the night before? A protector, a watcher, or something far more dangerous? Before she could answer, Mara lunged forward, shoving her. Ilara stumbled, catching herself on the rough wooden stall. The villagers gasped, some laughing, others frozen in shock. Her face burned with humiliation, but beneath the shame, a fire ignited. Something inside her, a spark no one had ever noticed, flickered to life, sharp and defiant. And then, just as quickly as it began, Mara was pulled back by her friends, leaving Ilara standing alone in the sunlight, trembling yet resolute. But the shadowed figure at the edge of the square lingered, unseen by the others, eyes fixed on her. Ilara swallowed hard, knowing one truth: nothing in her life would ever be the same again. Ilara fled the village at first light, her cloak tangling around her legs as she ran toward the forest's edge. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, yet her chest tightened with every step. The humiliation of the square still burned against her skin, but beneath it simmered something else, a restless, unfamiliar energy she could no longer ignore. The forest welcomed her like an old friend, shadows curling around the trunks of ancient trees, leaves whispering secrets in a language only she could feel. She slowed, heart still hammering, and let herself breathe, allowing the forest to swallow the fear that clung to her. Then she felt it, a presence, silent, heavy, watching, not malevolent but impossibly aware. Ilara froze mid-step, every nerve alert. She could sense it as clearly as the wind brushing her cheek, the pull of something not entirely human, something that seemed to hum in tune with her heartbeat. "Who's there?" she whispered, though the words barely left her lips. A figure shifted among the shadows, tall and strong, radiating a presence that made the hairs on her arms rise. Its eyes glinted like polished amber, briefly catching the sun through the canopy. Ilara's stomach clenched, not from fear, but from the undeniable pull tugging at her very soul. Her instincts screamed to run, yet her feet stayed rooted. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a thread connecting her to the figure that neither time nor fear could sever. A sudden rustle to her right made her spin, but there was nothing, only the trees swaying as though the forest itself had breathed a warning. When she turned back, the figure was closer, stepping silently into a shaft of sunlight, revealing a form both human and something more, powerful, commanding, and impossibly aware of her hidden depths. "Ilara," a low voice murmured, carrying through the stillness. It wasn't loud, but it vibrated deep inside her, stirring a response she didn't understand. Her name, spoken by someone who seemed to know her soul, sent a shiver down her spine. She wanted to retreat, to hide, but the forest felt different now, alive, protective, and strangely expectant. The figure's gaze never left hers, and she realized that whatever this was, it had been waiting for her. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished among the trees, leaving only the whisper of the wind and a pulse in her chest she had never known. Elara knelt, pressing her palms to the earth, feeling the lingering warmth of the presence. Something was calling to her, something dangerous, powerful, and utterly inevitable. She was not alone anymore. The village was unusually silent that evening. Word had spread. The alpha of the nearby pack was coming. Even the bravest villagers shuttered their windows and barred their doors, whispering that the cursed girl would soon face the judgment of someone far greater than themselves. Elara stood at the outskirts, hidden in the shadows, sensing the tension ripple through the streets. She had heard rumors of the Alphat, all commanding and feared by all who knew him. Some said he could bend the world with a glance. Others claimed he could sense the truth in a heart with terrifying precision. When he arrived, the ground seemed to hum beneath his steps. The villagers froze, whispers faltering into awed silence. The Alpha's presence was undeniable, broad, shouldered, fierce amber eyes scanning the crowd, every movement deliberate and precise. He did not speak, yet his aura demanded attention, bending even the most skeptical to instinctive respect or fear. And then his gaze found her. Elara felt it like a shock, sharp and penetrating. The whispers, the fear, the cruelty, they all vanished under his scrutiny. For the first time, someone saw her without hesitation or judgment. The world contracted, leaving only the two of them, the outcast girl and the Alpha who seemed to recognize something she had never dared to name in herself. He stepped closer, and the air seemed to thicken around them, charged with a tension that made Elara's pulse race. The villagers shrank back, whispering and glancing at one another nervously, but he ignored them entirely. His eyes were locked on hers, calm yet intense, as though reading every secret she had buried. "Elara," he said, voice deep, resonant, carrying a weight she couldn't comprehend. "You are more than they believe. Do not hide from what is inside you." Her breath caught. His words struck something deep within her, a spark that had been flickering, unnoticed, all her life. Something that had felt small, meaningless, now roared awake under his gaze. Before she could reply, a commotion erupted near the edge of the square. A villager, emboldened by fear and ignorance, stepped forward to mock her, pointing and sneering. But the Alpha's stance shifted, sharp and protective, and the village went still. His warning was unspoken yet unmistakable. "Cross her, and you face me." Elara felt a pulse of heat in her chest, a sudden certainty that her life was changing in ways she could not yet understand. The Alpha had seen her, not the curse, not the whispers, but the girl beneath, the one who had always been stronger than anyone realized. And in that moment, the connection between them hummed, unbroken, electric, and impossible to ignore. Night had fallen, draping the village in a heavy, velvet darkness. Elara found herself walking toward the edge of the forest again, drawn by a pull she couldn't explain. The Alpha had returned with the pack now, patrolling the streets with a presence that silenced even the boldest villagers. But it wasn't his authority that called to her. It was the way he had looked at her earlier, as if he had seen something inside her that no one else ever could. She paused beneath a gnarled oak, her fingers tracing the rough bark, trying to steady her racing heart. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying faint, unfamiliar scents. Something ancient, something alive. And then she felt it, a stir within her, a quiet hum of power that she had always buried beneath fear and doubt. The Alpha stepped into the moonlight behind her, silent as a shadow. Elara didn't turn at first. She already knew he was there. He stopped a step away, his amber eyes catching the silver glow of the moon. "You hide it well," he said softly, almost a murmur, yet it reverberated inside her. "But I feel it, your gift, your strength. You don't even realize it yet." Elara's breath caught. She had always thought of herself as powerless, cursed even, an outcast to everyone around her. Yet here was someone, this alpha, this presence, that could sense what lay dormant, unacknowledged, but undeniably hers. She began, but words failed her. How could she explain what she barely understood herself? How could she tell him about the whispers in the moonlight, the pull she felt in the forest, the fire that surged whenever she was pushed too far? He stepped closer, closer than anyone had ever dared, until the faint heat of his presence brushed against her skin, and in that closeness something unspoken passed between them, recognition, understanding, and the undeniable spark of connection that refused to be ignored. "Ilara," he murmured again, softer this time, "you are not what they fear. You are what they cannot comprehend, but I see you." Her chest tightened, a mixture of fear and longing, confusion and clarity. And in that moment, a shiver ran through her, not of cold, but of awakening. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the wind paused, and somewhere deep inside her, the secret she had buried all her life whispered back, ready to emerge. And then, just as quickly as he had appeared, he stepped back, leaving her alone with the night and the rising awareness that her life, and her heart, would never be the same. The moon hung high and luminous over the forest clearing, silver light spilling across the soft grass. Ilara sat at the edge, hidden beneath the shadows of towering pines, but she wasn't alone. The alpha had returned, moving silently like a predator, yet somehow gentler here, away from the prying eyes of the villagers and pack alike. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the world narrowed until only the two of them existed. Every glance, every small shift in posture carried meaning neither dared voice aloud. Ilara's heartbeat thundered in her chest, a wild drum in the still night. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, though the caution in her voice betrayed her. "I know," he said, stepping closer, the heat of his presence brushing against her like sunlight through the trees. "But neither should we feel this, what draws us together." Her throat tightened, every warning she had heard in her life, the whispers, the mockery, the fear, pressed against her mind, yet it could not silence the pull she felt toward him. There was something magnetic in the way he regarded her, a recognition that was more than curiosity. It was, claiming. Ilara dared a small movement, leaning slightly closer. Their fingers almost brushed, a hair's breadth away, and in that suspended moment, the air between them seemed to shimmer. It was dangerous. It was forbidden, and yet it felt inevitable. "You feel it too," he murmured, voice low and steady. "This connection, we shouldn't, but we do." Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she let herself breathe him in the warmth, the strength, the undeniable pull. The forest seemed to lean in, holding its breath, as if aware that something delicate and volatile was unfolding. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush broke the spell. Both of them tensed, eyes darting to the shadows. The moment passed too quickly, but the reminder of danger only heightened the intensity between them. Their fleeting intimacy, their forbidden closeness, felt charged, electric, fragile. Ilara's heart ached with longing, fear, and anticipation. She knew the villagers, the pack, even fate itself would disapprove of this bond. Yet every glance, every touch denied or deferred, wove a thread between them stronger than anything she had ever known. He stepped back reluctantly, eyes never leaving hers. "Soon," he said, a promise and a warning intertwined. Ilara watched him disappear into the shadows, a part of her wanting to call after him, another part knowing that to follow would be reckless. Her pulse still hummed from their near touch, a reminder that some bonds were irresistible and perilous. The village square was alive with tension, though the sun had barely risen. Today was not like any other morning. Mara, Ilara's jealous rival, had stirred the villagers into a frenzy, ensuring that everyone gathered to witness what she promised would be the truth. About the cursed girl, Ilara stood at the edge of the square, heart-tight, every nerve on alert. She had grown used to whispers, sneers, and sideways glances, but this felt different. This was calculated, public, and fueled by malice. Mara stepped forward, smirk curling on her lips. "Come, Ilara," she called, her voice carrying across the square. "Show everyone why you are feared, or are you afraid?" Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and cutting. Even some of the pack members who had accompanied the alpha glanced uneasily, But before Mara could advance any further, the Alpha emerged from the shadows, his presence magnetic and unyielding. Every eye turned to him. The villagers froze. The Alpha's gaze fell on Alara, steady and protective, and the tension in the square seemed to crackle like a live wire. "She doesn't need to prove anything," he said, voice low but carrying unmistakable authority. The words silenced the murmurs, leaving a tense stillness that pressed down on the square like a storm cloud. Mara's smirk faltered, replaced with a flash of anger. "And who are you two?" The Alpha stepped closer, amber eyes blazing, every movement deliberate. "I am the Alpha," he said simply, "and she is under my protection." Gasps ran through the crowd. Villagers whispered in awe and fear. Mara's supporters hesitated, unsure whether to challenge him or retreat. But Mara, driven by pride and jealousy, refused to back down. She raised her voice, mocking Alara and daring the Alpha to act. A tense silence followed, the kind that made hearts pound and blood thrum with anticipation. Then, from the edge of the crowd, a low growl reverberated, subtle but unmistakable. The pack members shifted, their instincts on high alert. The Alpha's posture stiffened. Alara felt something stir inside her. The spark she had ignored, hidden for years, flared suddenly. Her pulse quickened, a strange warmth spreading through her limbs, giving her courage and clarity. She lifted her chin, meeting Mara's gaze with a calm that belied the fire rising within her. Before anyone could react further, the Alpha's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, a protective, grounding touch. Alara felt the connection pulse between them, strong and undeniable. Mara's jaw tightened. She had underestimated the girl she had mocked for years, and the consequences were just beginning. The crowd held its breath. The air vibrated with tension, danger, and something unspoken. The rising storm of pack politics, jealousy, and power that threatened to engulf them all. Night descended on the village like a heavy curtain, but Alara could feel the heat lingering from the day's confrontation. The Alpha's protective presence had shielded her from Mara's mockery, but the embers of jealousy and resentment still smoldered, unseen but dangerously close. She retreated to the edge of the forest, seeking solace beneath the ancient trees. Every shadow seemed alive, whispering secrets she could almost understand. She hoped for quiet, for a moment to collect herself, but instead, she sensed a presence she had once trusted, now carrying deceit. Her closest confidant, Leora, emerged from the darkness, eyes flickering with unease. "Alara," she began, voice trembling, but before Alara could respond, Leora hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as though someone, or something, was watching. A sharp ache gripped Alara's chest. Something wasn't right. Leora's hands trembled as she spoke again. You need to know. They've discovered your secret, the pack. They know everything." Alara froze, heart hammering. Her secret, her gift, her power, the very thing she had hidden all her life, was exposed. Betrayal cut deeper than any sword. The warmth she had felt in the Alpha's presence, the spark of safety and trust, now felt fragile, threatened. "How?" Alara demanded, her voice breaking through the still night. "Why would you?" Leora's eyes filled with tears. "I had no choice. They threatened me, I thought. Maybe if I told them first, they'd spare you. I was trying to protect you, but protection had become treachery." The revelation spread through the pack like wildfire. Alara felt the forest tremble with unspoken voices, eyes unseen but judging, weighing, ready to strike. Fear surged, not for herself, but for the life she had barely begun to carve, for the Alpha, and for the fragile bond between them. She stepped back, anger and heartbreak colliding in a storm inside her. The betrayal ignited something deep within, a force she had yet to fully understand. Her hands trembled, then clenched as energy surged through her, subtle but undeniable. She could feel it pulsing with the betrayal demanding release, from the shadows movement, eyes glinting. Wolves of the pack stirred, alerted to her rising power, their instincts flaring at the tremor in the air. The Alpha's voice, distant but commanding, cut through the tension. "Alara, control it." But control was a fragile concept tonight. Trust had shattered, danger was imminent, and the world she thought she understood had fractured into chaos. Flames, anger, fear, and power burned within her, and in that moment she knew She could either succumb to the betrayal or rise, stronger, and reveal the force they all feared. The forest was alive with tension. Shadows flickered between the trees, whispers of the pack carried on the wind, and Elara stood at the center, heart hammering. Her secret, the gift she had hidden for years, had been exposed, and the weight of fear, betrayal, and anger coiled inside her like a storm ready to break. The Alpha appeared at the edge of the clearing, his presence commanding yet watchful. He had seen the tension ripple through the pack and knew the danger she faced. His amber eyes locked onto hers, steady, grounding, and full of unspoken warning. "Stay with me," he said softly, though the words carried the force of an order. Elara's hands trembled, but the energy within her pulsed stronger, responding to the chaos around her. She had always hidden it, buried it beneath fear and doubt, but now survival demanded more. Slowly, deliberately, she lifted her hands. Light shimmered along her fingertips, gathering and twisting into shapes the forest had never seen. The pack froze, whispers turning to gasps. Wolves stepped back instinctively, sensing the power that radiated from her, raw and untamed. Even the Alpha stiffened, a flicker of awe crossing his face. The glow surged, expanding like liquid silver, illuminating the clearing. Every betrayal, every insult, every moment of fear fed it, igniting her full potential. The air vibrated with her energy, crackling with a force the pack had never encountered. Mara stumbled back, eyes wide in disbelief and terror. Other pack members took a cautious step away, instinct screaming that this was beyond anything they could control. The Alpha's hand reached for hers, grounding her, anchoring the surge of power. "Elara, now I see," he murmured, awe and reverence in his voice. "You are not cursed, you are extraordinary." The revelation hit Elara like a tidal wave. The power she had feared, the secret she had hidden, was not a curse. It was her gift, and now, fully unleashed, it radiated from her, undeniable, unstoppable. A sudden movement at the edge of the clearing drew her gaze. Shadows shifted, eyes glinting with intent, drawn by her awakening. Danger was still near, but for the first time, Elara felt ready, not helpless, not afraid. She turned to the Alpha, and in his steady, unwavering gaze, she found more than protection. She found trust, recognition, a bond that was more than fate. It was inevitable. The forest held its breath. The night had changed forever. The moon hung full and radiant above the forest clearing, casting silver light over the aftermath of Elara's revelation. The pack had retreated to the shadows, wary, awed, and uncertain. But the Alpha remained by her side, his presence steady, commanding, and unyielding. Elara's chest still hummed with residual energy from the surge of her gift. The fire within her was alive, but it no longer frightened her. Instead, it felt right, aligned with something she had never dared name, a bond she had sensed but never fully understood. The Alpha stepped closer, his amber eyes holding hers with a focus that made the air between them thrum. "Elara," he said, voice low, deep, resonating like the heartbeat of the forest itself. "You've shown them, shown me, the truth of who you are." Her pulse raced. Every glance, every subtle shift in his stance drew her closer. The world had shrunk to this clearing, this moment, this undeniable tension that neither could deny. You see me," she whispered, almost afraid to speak the words. "I see you," he said firmly. "The real you. Not the curse, not the whispers, not the lies they told themselves to feel safe. I see you." Her breath caught. The recognition, the raw honesty in his gaze, stirred something deep inside her, a need, a longing, and an undeniable pull that had grown since their first encounter. Then, without warning, he reached for her, hands firm yet gentle, grounding her as the energy around her pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The connection flared, tangible and electric, weaving threads of trust, protection, and something far more intimate. "Elara, mate," he murmured, the single word resonating in the clearing like a promise, a claim, and a vow all at once. Her lips parted, her heart thundered, and the realization crashed over her. She was no longer the girl feared and mocked. She was chosen, loved, recognized, bound to someone who could match her strength, understand her power, and accept all that she was. The pack watched from the shadows, awed into silence. Even the forest seemed to exhale, acknowledging the bond that had formed in the quiet aftermath of chaos. Illyra's hands trembled as she rested them against his chest, feeling the solid heartbeat beneath her palms. The Alpha's arms encircled her, firm, protective, and accepting. In that moment, with the moon casting its blessing over them, the impossible became undeniable. They were mate and Alpha, bound by fate, by power, and by a connection that no force could break. The first light of dawn spilled over the village, soft and golden, dissolving the shadows that had haunted Illyra for so long. She walked through the streets with a newfound confidence, each step steady, each breath filled with purpose. The whispers that once followed her had faded, replaced by cautious respect and awe. Villagers paused, eyes wide as she passed. No longer the girl to be feared or mocked, she carried herself with the quiet strength of someone who had survived, endured, and embraced her true power. Children peeked from behind carts, curious rather than terrified, while elders exchanged nods of acknowledgement. Illyra's gaze swept over the familiar sights, the market stalls, the stone bridge, the paths she had once trodden alone. And for the first time, she saw the village not as a cage, but as a place she could belong. The curse that had haunted her name was gone, broken by the revelation of her gift and the undeniable bond with the Alpha. He appeared at her side without warning, silent and steady, his presence grounding yet commanding. Amber eyes met hers, and in them she saw the pride and recognition she had craved all her life. "You've embraced it," he said softly, voice carrying the weight of their journey, all of it, "and now you are free." Illyra smiled, a genuine curve of lips that lit her face. Freedom had never felt so tangible, so right. The power within her no longer hid in shadows. It pulsed openly, harmonizing with the Alpha's strength, their bond unshakable and undeniable. As they walked together through the village, the lingering tension melted. Neighbors no longer turned away, animals no longer fled at her presence, and the air itself seemed lighter, relieved of the weight of fear and superstition. And yet, even in the calm, a flicker of awareness remained. Illyra knew that challenges would come, as they always did, but she had faced the worst and emerged stronger. She was no longer defined by the curse others imagined. She was defined by her courage, her gift, and the bond she shared with the Alpha. The sun climbed higher, casting its warmth across the village. Illyra inhaled deeply, feeling the connection between herself, the Alpha, and the world around her. The past had been painful, but it had led her to this moment. Empowered, loved, and finally at peace. For the first time, the girl who had been feared could walk openly, unafraid, unashamed, and wholly herself.